Hello fellow audio nerds, I'm Steph and this is Major Hi-Fi. Audeze recently released their newest headphone, the LCD-24. Now, these ones are in the similar kind of line as the LCD-4, and they have both double fluxor magnet arrays and the nanoscale diaphragms. So I was really curious, how do these sound and what is the sound signature and who's it for? Well, let's take a closer look with this Audeze LCD-24 review. Oh, hey, Steph here. Before getting started into the review, I just want to say a quick thing. If you like this review and you find it really helpful, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel. We definitely want to try and grow a little bit, so definitely want to hear your feedback as well. So let us know what you think in the comments down below. Alright, thanks. I'll see you in the review. Taking a look at the headphones, you'll notice that they look pretty remarkably similar to the LCD MX4. They have this matte black finish, ear cups made of metal. They've got the dual tiered headband design here with the carbon fiber on top and the strip of leather underneath it. But it does have the new headband, so these yokes are sort of, they sit at an angle, in other words, so they sit a little bit more comfortably on the head. You'll notice that the ear pads are thicker in the back, thinner in the front, so it sort of holds the ear cups at an angle on your head. But overall, they just feel super sturdy, super durable, and very well made in the hands. Now, these are super light compared to some of the others in the LCD series. They're 540 grams compared to the LCDX, for example, which is 635 grams, so significantly lighter in the hand, but also still feel really strong and secure. They're comfortable on my head. You'll notice that the headband kind of goes all the way across the top of my head because of these sort of angled yokes. And the ear pads are thick enough to keep my ear off of the ear cup, so it is very comfortable. There's a little bit of a clamping force here, but it just feels really secure. It doesn't feel like it's crushing my head. Now, I have a relatively small head, so maybe that feels different to those who have bigger heads than I do, but for me, it's remarkably comfortable, especially for an Audeze, planar magnetic headphone here. The headband is pretty flexible though, and there are these metal extenders here, so they will work for a wide variety of heads. Now, as I mentioned, these have planar magnetic drivers. They use neodymium 50 magnets, and it does feature the fluxor magnet arrays, a double fluxor magnet array, which makes it kind of special. It also has the nanoscale diaphragms. I think it was like 0.5 microns thin, super thin diaphragms. Of course, it also has the phaser elements made by Audeze, which kind of help to direct the airflow of these so that it can really kind of keep phase coherence. Now, the LCD-24 does come with Audeze's premium cable. That means 4 individually insulated conductors made of silver-coated copper, OCC copper that is. Now, there are crystals within that copper that are oriented in such a way to basically get the best signal transmission possible. And also, Audeze optimized the gauge of the wire for the lowest impedance and just the best signal transmission that you could get. Now, the low frequencies of the LCD-24 have quickness and punch with a subtle feeling of extension. The low frequencies don't feel overly boosted at all. They feel pretty appropriate in the mix level-wise, actually. But they do have that kind of subtle extension and a little bit of a boost around what sounded to me like 40 hertz, which sort of gives just extra deepness to kick drums, to sub basses, to other basses. It just kind of gives that extra kind of low energy that gives it more dimensionality. So for example, when I was listening to the song Cleva by Erykah Badu, the kick drum felt quick, it felt tight and punchy, and that really kind of contributed to that feeling of groove that it had in the song along with the bass guitar. Now, it also had a subtle feeling of extension, which sounded really nice and just aesthetically pleasing, while also feeling like a really full kick drum. The mid-range of the LCD-24 was absolutely beautiful, had really nice weight, feeling of harmonic complexity, and presence for sure. I noticed a little bit of a boost around what sounded like 200 hertz, and this just kind of created that weight for electric guitars, bass guitars, pianos, organs, even horns, and even sometimes vocals. I definitely did notice too, just this feeling of harmonic complexity there in the mid-range that made it both really nice for complex instruments like guitars, for example, But also for room mics and reverbs, you could really get a sense for the tails of those kind of decays. And because there's so much kind of quickness to this mid-range, it just creates good separation in the mid-range. Now I did notice a little bit of a cut around what sounded like 1 to 2K right at the base of the high mids, and this kind of creates greater separation between instruments with more particular mid-range mid-range information and those with more high mid information like vocals, for example. So for example, when I was listening to the song Thrash Unreal by Against Me, the bass guitar felt nice and full. It had great movement and groove because of how quick everything is with these headphones. And when the song opens up, it's got these kind of like chuggy, palm muted electric guitars, and just the kind of quickness of these really gave this like feeling of movement to those electric guitars. And then the pre-chorus and the chorus come in, and the guitars feel nice and big when they come in, yet still have presence to kind of give them clarity. And then the vocal was able to sit on top of all of that with lots of clarity. It seemed like the high-mid response was actually pretty even with these. The high frequencies of the Audeze LCD-24 were gorgeous, very pretty. They had both presence and extension. Now I noticed a boost in the lower treble around what sounded like 6 to 7 kilohertz, and this brought a lot of kind of articulation to vocals. It brought forward the snaps of drum transients and acoustic guitars and horn stabs and quick strings. But I also noticed a little bit of a cut around a couple areas, around 8 kilohertz and 10 kilohertz. And what this kind of did was kind of soften the level of the highs as a whole as they come across. They're definitely there, and even though it sort of lowered that level, it also created nice separation between instruments that have more presence and then this feeling of extension that I'll get to right now. There was another boost in the upper octave, somewhere around what sounded to me like 11 kilohertz up through like 14K. And this just created a beautiful feeling of lift, not harsh at all, but just giving this life and this energy to instruments and also creating nice separation there. For example, when I was listening to the song 1919 by Terry Lynn Carrington, the piano hammers had lots of clarity and expression to them. They had a lot of space around them. The snare brushes had a little bit of extra presence to them, and same thing with cymbal hits and cymbal sustains. But those cymbal sustains were actually really beautiful sounding, this gorgeous feeling of lift to them, and just this overall kind of like dimensionality that would not have come across otherwise. And I could also hear kind of the wood of the upright bass along with some finger noise, and that combined with that sense of lift and expression in the cymbals just created this amazingly beautiful emotional impact to my ear. The soundstage of the Audeze LCD-24 definitely benefits from that feeling of activity and quick transient response. Now, the feeling of width, while not super dramatic, has great separation and lots of particularity to the placement of things. The feeling of height, by contrast, though, has great kind of dramatization. It's really quite dramatic because of the high frequency extension and that subtle feeling of low frequency extension. And then finally, as for the depth feels very controlled, very nuanced, yet it still has like really nice separation. And part of the thing that makes the depth really great is that the feeling of room mics and reverbs are so clear sounding and have so much kind of separation and detail to them that it really creates this kind of vivid sense of depth. For example, when I was listening to the song Good Life by Sammy Ray, the vocals, the drums, the horns all felt very particular in where they were placed in the depth. And I was particularly impressed by how the horns felt really nice and far back in space, yet still maintained all of their detail. Then the electric guitars, which are panned pretty far out to the left and right, had really good separation from each other and from the phantom center. It didn't feel like they were so dramatic that they shot out from the head. They still maintained that intimacy, but they definitely had really good gradation from the other kind of areas of where things were being panned. And then lastly, the kick drum contrasted really nice and strongly from the vocals and the horns and the strings and the other instruments kind of sitting up above. And that was followed by then the guitars and the body of the vocals kind of sitting more in the middle. So there was really good separation in the height and kind of that dramatic feeling that I described. Overall, the Audeze LCD-24 was comfortable, a nice full mid-range, and a beautifully extended high end. The low end feels full as well, but it's not going to be great for bass heads just because of the overall level of the lows in the entire mix. I particularly liked it for jazz, for rock and indie music, and for acoustic music. Thank you so much for watching. For a closer look at my experience with the Audeze LCD-24, you can check out the link down below in the description box. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and for more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. Alright everybody, I will see you next time. Bye!